have this opportunity or get this opportunity. So let us make use of today, let's make use of this occasion, and I hope that as we get onto the panel and have these conversations, we can actually see what it takes to get into the oil and gas sector. Now before I go to the stage, I just wanted to have a word or two from our very important partner, Private Sector Foundation of Uganda. Private Sector Foundation of Uganda is where we actually lobby to have that local content story activated as well. So we invited Private Sector Foundation to join us today. And remember, your businesses are part of this. So you could also ask them what opportunities they have for you in preparation for this oil and gas story. So Damali Sali, if you could just come and share a few words and then we can run on with the program. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Damali Sali. I'm the Chief Programs Officer at Private Sector Foundation. Our CEO, Stephen Asimwe, was meant to be here, but he's not in the country, so he delegated me. But I'm very happy to be here at the Stanbic Business Incubator. We do have an MOU with the Stanbic Business Incubator to work together, especially around this oil and gas story. And it's to ensure that we are able to benefit as a country in a way that makes sense, that we are able to reap the real benefits of actually we having oil in the country. So Private Sector Foundation is a business membership organization. We are the apex body of the private sector, and our members are the associations. So if there is an oil and gas association, that association becomes a member of Private Sector Foundation. If indeed there is no oil and gas association, I suggest we set up an oil and gas association, which then becomes a member of PSFU. So at the moment we have about 300 associations that are member of Private Sector Foundation, and they are categorized into sectors, 12 sectors of the economy. One of the sectors is oil and gas. And what we do, and we do it very well, is policy and advocacy. So we are your policy and advocacy people. If you need any, and as Tony did mention, we did really fight for that local content law, and we really advocated and engaged government very continuously over several years to ensure that we do have the local content law. But now that we do, we need to ensure that it is enforced. We need to ensure that it's operationalized, that it is working, because we may have a law, but then it's not operational, it's not enforced, therefore we still don't benefit. So what we do well is actually policy and advocacy. And being that your private sector, and if you do have an issue with anything to do with policies, you can actually get in touch with Private Sector Foundation, and then we do follow that policy through with ensuring that we advocate for you. So I just wanted to give that brief intro about Private Sector Foundation. But also on the other hand, we also do have the other half of PSFU, which is on programs, which I'm in charge of. So we do have a multitude of projects that we design, and then we work with several development partners to ensure that they are helpful to the economy. So, for example, we do have a skills and governance project currently. I encourage you to go on our website, or we advertise a lot, we put a lot of information out there. So normally we do give out grants to Ugandan companies that are trying to do work, that are trying to, or that create employment into the country, and we do give out grants. We work with Ugandan companies on projects. So our project portfolio is quite significant, about $300 million, but it's in a buffet of different projects, and whichever you fit in, you may be there or be able to engage. But most importantly, I think I also wanted to emphasize Tony's point, i.e. It's a networking event. I would have wanted to see more networking. We were actually joking on the table over there that we came and talked to each other. We talked to the people we knew. So we are not actually networking, and yet we're supposed to be networking. So I encourage you to network, because it's going to be the partnerships between Tier 1 and Tier 2 that are going to really ensure that that benefit trickles down to the Ugandans. But for that to happen, we need to talk to each other. We have to, the Tier 2s need to talk to the Tier 1s and Tier 1s, and vice versa. And this kind of engagement gives us that particular opportunity. So we need to be able to use it. But I thank you for the time. Thank you for listening to me, and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you very much, Damali. So before we get into the rest of the program, you know, most companies always introduce the team at the end. But I want to introduce the team that has made this possible at the beginning, before we can get on to or start off with our program. So the team from the Stanbic Business Incubator, if you could just come up on stage. Sheila, Linda, the team from the Business Incubator, and of course the team from the bank. Eva and your team, if you could just come up here, please. Okay, so these are the people that have made it possible for you. These are the people that work hand in hand with us to make it possible for you. But also, if you need money and they are saying there's no money to give you, these are the guys to crucify. So I have given you faces to the names that you see in emails, not anymore behind emails. Now you have the faces. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you, Tony, and thanks to the team. And thank you, Damali, of course, for those remarks. Damali was my boss not so many months ago. And so I'm glad that you're here. Okay. So Tony mentioned a few things. Opportunity, but there's also something researchers have been trying to define called luck. Whether you can measure luck or not. So if you combine the CEO of Petroleum Authority of Uganda, and after that, they are kind enough, they have a presentation for us about the opportunities in the sector. This is part of national content that they've worked so hard to develop. So please, this is a very, very crucial moment for us. Penina, please, the stage is yours. And please, yeah, thank you. Hand clap for Penina. Please.
Thank you so much for that warm welcome. Indeed, I'm called Penina Hebwa, and I work as the Director Economic and National Content Monitoring with the Petroleum Authority of Uganda. Because he's very passionate about SMEs and national content, in addition to his technical areas. I'm not here alone. I have a number of colleagues. Some of them are going to come and speak to us. But just briefly, as the Petroleum Authority of Uganda, as you know, we are in charge of monitoring and regulating petroleum activities in the country, but we only stop at the midstream. And the midstream is refining, gas conversion, and bulk transportation of crude oil. In addition to the upstream, which is the exploration, development, and production. So we don't go down to the downstream, which is retailing and distribution of petroleum products. As the PAU, we have a number of key priorities in terms of our focus areas in regulating the sector. And key among them is maximizing or optimizing national content in the sector, or Ugandan content in the sector. We have achieved quite a lot in the four main pillars that we focus on, which is employment, utilization of goods and services by Ugandans or in Uganda, offered by Ugandans, training, technology and knowledge transfer, capacity building, among others. And I must say, I'm going to invite my colleague to come and break down the presentation as asked from us in terms of what are the opportunities, where are they, and how can you take advantage of them. But before I do that, I wanted to appreciate the Stanbic Business Incubator and Stanbic Bank in general. These are our key partners as PAU. We have worked a lot together on a number of projects, especially capacity building. And we have also now gone into sectoral linkages where we are defining these sectoral linkages in agriculture, in housing together. And we want to appreciate them. We don't take it for granted. I wish we could have more partners like this. And if you're there, and indeed you can come and work with us to achieve this mandate of maximizing national content in oil and gas, doors are open for us to discuss and partner to make sure this development phase does not leave this country the same at the end of at achievement of first oil. So I'll leave it at this since because I don't want to preempt the presentation, and I will invite my colleague James Musherure, who will take us through the details of where are the opportunities and how can you take advantage. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Director Penna. I don't know if the presentation is up. As you've heard, a time for opportunities. There's a time we used to come and talk about opportunities, but deep down in your heart, you're not sure about the opportunities. This was around 2014, 2015. Mr. Tony Otoa was not yet the CEO, and he was in the engine room at Total, and he would come and give us, and we think that this is air because we're not seeing. But now when we talk about opportunities, I am sure most of you have felt them. That's why the room is even hot. It's beginning to heat up in the oil and gas sector. And if you haven't realized, then it's a day for you to wake up. If you go to Hoima, if you go to Bulisa, you will see that we are actually moving. Are you able to put up the presentation? Yes, I will not go into what the PAU does, but the first part was PAU and my director talked about it. I will just emphasize that we are the regulators and we try to ensure that there is 5 areas are catered for, the costs are low, environment is protected, the resource production is done in a proper manner, the stakeholders are made engaged, but on top of that, national content is key. And unlike other African countries, Uganda has learned from the worst and from the best. Nigeria set up its first local content law almost 50 years after discovery, and it was too late. But we're lucky, we put up the right legal framework, the right institutional framework from the start before we even test a barrel of oil. And the results are there, because from the exploration phase, when there was about $4 billion invested, about 30% went to Ugandan companies from the start, emphasizing, even when it was hard work, seismic data acquisition and the rest. Now we've moved into production. We are being tough. I'm sure you've heard people crying, how am I not a Ugandan company? How am I? Because we want to make sure that Ugandans benefit and value is retained through national content, through SMEs. Now, the authority is responsible for that. There are 4 projects, and if the presentation comes up, that are of interest right now. Yes, there is exploration ongoing, and we hope and we will discover more resources. But what has been discovered, we have 4 projects that are being developed. One is the Tilenga project. I think all of us know Tilenga, run by Total, 210 barrels per day of production, and we have a smaller one, Kingfisher down south, run by CNOOC, 40,000 barrels. Those 2 projects, each, Tilenga is about $3 to $4 billion for development, Kingfisher is about $2 to $3 billion for development. They need infrastructure. So when you extract the crude, you need infrastructure. That means the pipeline is going to be in place 1,443 kilometers from Hoima to Tanga in Tanzania, and a refinery. That's about 4 billion and 3.5 billion respectively. So we expected 15 billion. And that's where the opportunities are. Have these projects started? Yes. Does anyone not know that the projects have started? Hands up. They have started. The PAU has approved about $6.8 billion of contracts to date from the time FID was taken. These are contracts that will run 3 to 5 years. What is... Okay, finally the presentation is up. Can I have a... Okay, you can move forward. I'm getting out of head, so it's okay. So the PA has approved about $6.8 billion of contracts from the time FID was approved. And these are 3 to 5 years. Those are the major tier 1 contractors. And we're lucky, there are some of them are in this room. Mr. Miguel there is representing McDermott, the biggest contract of $2 billion. If I were you, I would be rubbing next to its perfume, because it's a $2 billion perfume. We have seen Volorek. They are here. They have a big major contract for tubular services. So these companies are here, and they are tier 1 contractors. And just move forward, you reach where there is ahead. Forward. So this is PAU, I talked about it. These are the 4 projects. Move forward. I talked about them, which is about $15 billion. And I hope they will share this presentation. You can move forward. Forward. Yes. So, progress. Let's just slightly back. So these projects, I told you that we have started, and the PI has approved that. So what is happening at Tilenga, the Total project? The Total project is supposed to have 3 rigs. One of them has already arrived. I think if you're on news, social media, you've been seeing about the trucks carrying rigs. The 2 of them, the 2 other rigs, are expected to come in the first half of next year. What about Kingfisher? Kingfisher is supposed to have 1 rig. That rig is in country, and I'm going to show you a picture ahead. The refinery, people think we are behind in the refinery. No, we are not. It is something that the government is committed to, because we have to do value addition, we have to do import substitution. And the negotiations for the crude oil supply implementation and shareholder agreements, like the ones we had for ECOP, are ongoing before FID. So the different agreements required for you to take FID are ongoing. ECOP, the final design is being I was saying ECOP is ongoing, the designs are being completed, construction is about to start. Major contracts for ECOP have been done. If you go forward, land is a key issue. Land acquisition is key before you start these infrastructure projects. But in most cases, next slide please, you will see that land, about some areas, 89% has been acquired. I think Tony need to take this SME for training. October, about 99% of Kingfisher, Tilenga 89, and the ECOP about 60. People have been compensated. These are the figures. So we stand at Tilenga at 89, Kingfisher 99, only 2 PAPs have not yet been compensated, and ECOP at 60. This work is ongoing. So don't ask, has the project started? Because these activities are ongoing. So as I stated, From the time of the announcement, 6.8, about 1.7 billion. 1.7 billion has gone to local companies. I was reading the URA report. Domestic collections alone, I think for last year or the other year, was about $2 billion in terms of domestic revenues. So you're looking at 1.7 billion of contracts coming. So the magnitude is there. And I believe everyone should start feeling it now. If you go to the next slide. This is happening. If you haven't been there, this is a picture. And this is an old picture because Come Out Better has a better picture I saw in their presentation. You'll see it. The old facilities, what's happening? A beehive of activities. This is Tilenga. Move forward for Kingfisher. Forward. Forward, forward until you see it. Until you see a picture. So Kingfisher also has a lot, and they have jumped the thing. So entities in this sector are many, and this slide, because it's not showing properly, showed you which companies are in the sector. McDermott, Sinopec. Some of these things turnover, the company's turnover is so huge compared to our GDP. They have 40 billion, 80 billion, 300 billion turnover. So these are the companies that are in your economy. These are companies that are in your economy, and these are the companies that you deal with. So when Tony is saying come early, they didn't get to 300 billion by coming late. So these are the companies that, Tony, are in your economy. Move forward. So these pictures are not seen because of, I think, the presentation and the PowerPoint, but there were pictures of companies, and you see, I will have a link. Forward. Continue, continue. So, what are the key drivers? We expect that about 15,000 people directly will be staying in the camps. About 100,000 people indirectly employed by the sector staying in the region. In the total, 160,000 people in the region. We expect that those are directly working, those are workers, but we expect that a replica effect of about 100 people will be 100,000 will be moving into that region. We'll have movements of over about 1 million by the end of the production. And where the people are, money follows them, and especially when there is oil. So those are important things. 25 years of production with revenues coming in. So these are the drivers that we think will create opportunities. Next slide, please. Wow. Where are the opportunities for SMEs? I told you there's a local content law. The local content law gazetted 16 services. We have thought and sung and cried about this. They include civil works, they include catering, they include communication, they include food supply, they include fuel, and these laws are on the website. Get to know them. Should I tell you a secret? Even though they are ring-fenced for Ugandan companies, the values are so high that international companies have an appetite for them. So if you don't go and prepare and serve yourself, someone else will come and serve that meal. So the law says this. If you go to the next. So there are indirect, direct, and induced services. So some of the direct services that are opportunities for you include service provision, capacity building, consultancy, civil works, a lot of civil work, transportation, fabrication. And these are the beginning at this, these are the construction stage, and they are important for you. There are also opportunities because the refinery will be in place. You require some downstream facilities. So we will require construction and supervision and management of storage terminals. This is a big project. There will be bulk transportation of refined products, and then also setting up of fuel blending facilities. These are long-term and downstream. If you go to the next. These opportunities are direct. But there are induced opportunities that you don't see, that you don't have to rush to an oil company. The induced opportunities are, and I was talking to the gentleman from Bulisa, and I asked him during this break, are there hotel facilities in Hoima? And he's in Bulisa and said, you know what, it's a struggle. You get one or two. You have to drive back over, I think, 90 kilometers to Hoima. What does that mean? Housing, hotel, that's an induced opportunity. Tourism, that's an induced opportunity. Healthcare, if you have these 100,000 people and there's an accident, is there a unique facility they can run to fast? These are induced opportunities. Transport, in that area, is there another form of transport not directly linked to the camps? So you also need to think out not only direct, but there are induced opportunities, there are economic linkages related to oil and gas. And as authority, we're emphasizing that do not look only at direct, look at the induced. If you go to the next. This slide for me is important because in the past, before FID, everyone thought we would get a contract with Total and CNOOC. I was also one of them thinking that now people are only going to get between Total and CNOOC. But the fact is that Total CNOOC will give big EPC contractors 2 billion. Those people will give tier 2, tier 2 will give tier 3, tier 3 will give tier 4. And that's why you need to focus. I'll give an example again. McDermott, $2 billion. Kermode is coming to present next. They said, build for us a camp. Maybe about 49 or whatever $million. Kermode is not going to do it alone. He will get Rohi, which is a construction company, to do civil works. Civil works now, remember McDermott is tier 1. He has gone to Kermode, who becomes tier 2. Kermode gives Rohi, who becomes tier 3. Rohi goes for tractors, who is tier 4. Tractors go for fuel, who is tier 5. So do not despise your neighbor, even if he's tier 3, because he may be your next boss. And don't look at tier 1 only. So the networking should go beyond tier 1 to tier 2, tier 3, and tier 4. What the authority has done is that on our website, if you go there, we have identified for you, if you go under NSD procurements, and put for you a list of all tier 1s with their contacts. Now, should we now start calling them for you? The list is there. What we are going to work on next is to put there tier 2s, so that we can give you visibility of these opportunities. As I come towards the end, continue. How do you tap in? Number 1, register on the National Supplier Database. How many of us are registered? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I think security should take out the rest. You have to be registered on the National Supplier Database before you do any contract in oil and gas. It's a mandate. So if your company is not registered, go there. We have an open line 24/7. We have a website. Please log in and register. Number 2, look out for the procurement opportunities. What we're doing, we're putting them on our website. Go there and visit. Attend workshops like this and network. Form joint ventures. Let us not be greedy. I will give you success stories of joint ventures. We've seen non-hazardous waste. There are about 3 or 4 Ugandan companies not in the bid. During the bid, they came together and they got about a $79 million contract. That's the power of joint venture. Insurance companies have all come together, formed a consortium, and they are doing all the insurance for the sector. That's the power of a joint venture. So please ensure you get a joint venture. Finally, deliver quality goods. Quality timelines are key. Gentlemen, the last slide. As I conclude, Olokoso is finished. The time of saying opportunities are not there is done. The sector has started, the opportunities are here, the players are here, the stakeholders are here. We've been talking about capacity building from 2013. It's now 2022. If your capacity is not yet there, please continue striving hard. If it is there, please don't be saying, I want to work with tier 1 only. Accept tier 2, accept tier 3, accept tier 4, accept partnership. Finally, the petrodollar may reach your pocket. I thank you very much.
Thank you, James. Doesn't he deserve another hand clap? Thank you. Just 3 people. Keywords, what did you hear? Keywords, just know that we are learning. Petrodollar. Somebody else? Keywords. Capacity building. Joint. I love the last one. It can be. Wow, that's the best. Now, we were chatting here, and we agreed that the malaise for most Ugandans is to want to do things on our own. For oil and gas, because we don't have experience. It's the first time we are doing it. So, please don't look at me and say, this is a smaller man. They said I can be your boss. So please try to befriend me. But also, let's take the opportunity, start talking now and ask, what are you doing? They mentioned, actually, these are the things I was expecting. 16 what? 16 what? Opportunities. 16 lines of opportunities listed. So you must be talking to your neighbor now and say, what is it? 2, the sector, the project is the development phase. You heard that. That means it's here. So there are 2 things or 3 things which will happen. Are you a believer? Are you a skeptic? Or you a naysayer? Okay? So at this moment, I want to announce and recognize that our guest of honor has arrived. So Tony, please take the mic and welcome our guest of honor. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Nelson. It's me again. You're getting, I think, tired of my face, but it's me again. So, our guest of honor has arrived. And as you all know, she was here earlier, but had to go and deal with some other duties and come back. So, she's going to speak to us now. And she's going to share with us, I believe, what you've all wanted to hear. What the government or the ministry is actually in plans or having plans for you. So, without further much ado, I would like to invite the Honorable Minister, Ruth Nakabira. She is the Minister of our sector, the sector where we are all as businesses engaged in. Honorable, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It's very difficult for me to recognize everybody here in your full capacities and portfolios. Therefore, allow me to say that protocol observed and good evening to you all. Secondly, I have to apologize for coming a bit early. I will learn
the Ugandan way. I was on dot, 4 p.m. I was here, and I started looking out of place. So I decided to excuse myself so that I don't inconvenience Tony and the organizers. And I did it happily. I promised I was going to come back, and I am back. I'm here. And I just want to pray that if we are to catch up with the times, let's learn how to keep time so that we can do a few things in the limited time that God gave us. So I'm privileged to be here this evening on this important function organized on oil and gas business to business networking session, which is organized by Stanbic Business Incubator. And I want to thank the Stanbic Business Incubator for inviting me at the Skies Hotel, Naguru, and the Stanbic Bank Uganda for supporting this event. Thank you very much. I was asked to speak to you on the topic, exploiting Uganda's oil and gas resources. Where are we today? And this is a very good topic because everybody wants to know where we are. A lot of speculations about oil and gas development in Uganda. Many people are ignorant about how far we've gone. I've interacted with people actually who think that we started selling the crude oil long ago, because whenever they see those huge trucks plying Hoima Road, Masindi, going to the oil region, they don't know that the activities that are taking place there require fuel, and that fuel is carried in tanks. So for them, when they see tanks going, coming back, they think we are taking out crude oil. So it is important that we sit down and take stock of what we have done, understand where we are right now, encourage everybody to take an interest in understanding how government is developing Uganda's natural resources. So thank you so much for this moment, and I will endeavor to summarize, because I know that I'm represented here by the people who are on the ground, and that they will continue interacting with you. On the state of affairs in Uganda's oil and gas sector, the country has progressed significantly in its oil and gas exploration efforts. First, by attracting investment in the sector, and secondly, and more importantly, the discovery of the commercial oil and gas reserves, which was done in 2006, and others that followed later. And in order to commercialize the discovered resources, government issued 9 petroleum production licenses to the oil companies in 2012 and 2016. And the discovery of oil and gas are being commercialized through the crude oil export pipeline, the popular EACOP, East African Crude Oil Pipeline, which is being developed by the EACOP company, and the oil refinery, which is being developed by the Albertine Graphene Refiner Energy Consortium. We amended the name just to match with the narrative. Because the word refinery develops good pimples to some people. They don't want to hear about refinery. They would rather hear about opening coal companies. That refinery is a taboo. So it is the Albertine Graphene Energy Consortium. So in preparation for the development of the flagship projects Government is also developing attendant infrastructure, which will facilitate the movement of equipment, goods, and people in the areas where those projects are being developed. So this infrastructure is also benefiting the communities in the areas and the country at large. This infrastructure includes the Kabale Industrial Park in Hoima, which will host the refinery. We shall have fuel. Example, evacuating 360 megawatts from Bujagali to Kawanda. Naluvale Kira lines evacuating almost 200. So we have a shortfall of power because the evacuation infrastructure is under attack. And this is not normal, petty vandalism. It is an attack on the economy of the country. It is also being experienced in Europe. And there are groups of people who train people on civil unrest through such activities. So we have all this information. Uganda has been progressing very well, expanding the national grid. We were talking with pride and we were promising industrial parks and everybody that the next move is to make sure that power is affordable. Let me also announce that there is no way I can reduce the tariff of electricity when I'm incurring costs in the infrastructure. If every other commodity, the prices are going up, why do you think that the price of electricity will go down? If inflation is going up, if the foreign exchange is going up, and you expect me to give you power at a reduced cost. So this has been a commercial announcement, commercial break. Commercial break because it affects us, it will affect the development, even in oil and gas, where you begin construction of the central processing facility, you need constant supply of power, and it has gone. So it is affecting us. We've not been experiencing load shedding. For a very long time, what we have been experiencing are power outages or power surges, where you have failed to control any flips of power circulation in your industry, and then you experience a surge. But load shedding was a thing of the past. But now we are doing load shedding because the transmitters or the transmission lines have been attacked. Akalango kaisewo. I can now continue. So pardon us. So I was telling you, I was explaining the infrastructure that I talked about. I mentioned the Kabale Industrial Park in Hoima, and I encourage all of you to visit in a coordinated manner. This park will host the refinery, all the crude oil from Kingfisher and Itilenga Central Processing Facility. The first processing will be done at the central processing facilities of the two areas, and then powered through the pipelines to the refinery. After the refinery, we shall have pipelines for the finished product now to take that finished product to Mpiji Namwabula, where we are going to construct a storage terminal to store about 351 million liters of finished product, while the other pipeline will take now the remainder of the crude oil, which is not refined through the refinery. The refinery will refine 60,000 barrels a day out of the 40,000 barrels a day plus the 190,000 barrels a day from Tilenga and from Kingfisher. The remainder will see its way to the coast at Tanga through the East African crude oil pipeline, which the activists have been decampaigning, saying that it is crossing Lake Victoria. Can you imagine the ignorance of the highest order? That the pipeline is crossing Lake Victoria. It is affecting 230 rivers. It is displacing lions and, this is what has been talked about out there. But I think we've done enough rebuttal, and now there is some peace. And we are continuing to develop this crude oil pipeline. Thank you. So we are going to have Uganda's second international airport. You better tell your children, because I don't want them to fail SST, where they ask you, how many international airports does Uganda have? One, Entebbe. So we're now going to have a second international airport. It's about 89 or 90% completed. A few things are remaining. That is going to be hosted in Hoima. We shall have crude oil and products storage transmission hub, logistics, warehousing, offices, petrochemical industries. I am anxiously waiting to see fertilizers being manufactured from the products, the byproducts from the refinery, and other associated facilities. Then the airport will support the oil and gas operations and also facilitate the growth of tourism and agriculture in the region. And I want to thank Stambik Incubator. You are in touch with our people to prepare them really to produce quality agricultural products. If it is tomatoes, let them be the tomatoes that are required. If it is cabbage without those, avocado, pawpaws, it is a shame. People complain about importing tomatoes from Kenya, importing, what we can grow in Uganda. So incubation is very key. Otherwise, we shall end up lamenting. Find your level, look for land in Chiboga, which is near Hoima, which is my home district, and establish some garden to produce quality carrots, quality, vegetables, horticulture. You can do a side hustle. Yes, and supply. Otherwise, we shall import from the region. So incubation is very key to teach our people on post-harvest handling and management and storage, all that. And following the announcement of the final investment decision happened on 1st of February 2022 at Kololo on the Tilenga and Kingfisher and East African crude oil pipeline projects by the oil companies. We are talking about an investment that was attracted to the tune of between 10 and 15 billion USD into Uganda's economy. And this has been unlocked in there. and has also de-risked new investments in all segments of the country's petroleum value chain. And I want to thank everybody who assisted us as we were preparing for the announcement. It wasn't easy, but it was done. And currently, a lot of progress has been registered, and critical works are ongoing on the Tilenga, Kingfisher, and Eco projects. Some drilling rigs have arrived at Kingfisher and Tilenga, and last month I witnessed the installation of the Kingfisher rig. I climbed it, the RA 8001 that is going to dig 8 kilometers down, and I witnessed the installation at Kingfisher, and I know that Tilenga is commencing either late this year or early next year. We are excited, and this gives us confidence that our first oil will be produced as announced in February 2022 during the final investment decision announcement. Given the need to sustainably exploit the country's energy resources, my ministry is undertaking data acquisition in the Moroto-Kadama Basin, and the preliminary results are encouraging. At least there's some seepage of oil that have been identified, so we are encouraged so far. And we also need to ensure sustainable utilization of the infrastructure and facilities being put in place for the commercialization of the petroleum resources. And because of this, 3 exploration licenses were issued in 2017, and the second licensing round is also being concluded in my ministry. And I plan to announce the 3rd licensing round next year during the East African Petroleum Conference and Exhibition that is slated to take place on the 14th of May. And I've been inviting colleagues from the region and beyond to come and participate. Let's be prepared to welcome them and showcase Uganda's potential in as far as our natural resources are concerned. On the policy direction regarding local content and other initiatives, ladies and gentlemen, Government of Uganda has put in place several policies to support and enhance the participation of Ugandans in the sector so as to maximize value retention from the petroleum industry. Everybody wants to see some retention in the country because we've been talking about Uganda being the pearl of Africa, gifted by nature. So we had to come up with sort of affirmative action, what you may call local content, to ring-fence some of the projects. So the policies are in place. We are very good at making policies, and we are trying very much to make sure that these policies are implemented. In 2008, we established the National Oil and Gas Policy, which has objectives that are intended to boost local content in the sector. We also established laws in 2013 that have provisions that foster local participation. And in 2016, we developed further regulations that provide for how to make Ugandan companies benefit or participate in the best way possible in the oil and gas sector. So the guidelines and regulations are in place. And in 2018, government put in place the local content policy for the oil and gas industry, which emphasizes promotion of local companies' competitiveness the promotion of the usage of the goods and services that they provide, and their capacity building so as to enable them win as many contracts as possible. Much as we talk about local content, but you have to begin by showing some kind of capacity in order to compete. We are not just going to, put food on the spoon, and then you must show some potential. And what is it that we can do in order to help you come up, build that potential to be able to compete? And in terms of initiatives undertaken by government to ensure maximum participation of Ugandan companies, we have developed standards to enable Ugandans participate in the oil and gas industry. We have also trained over 1,500 local suppliers in the oil and gas industry in bid management. This is where we, bid management. If you don't know the science of bid management, you remain there on your knees praying for miracles from God. Procurement, some standards and practices as a way of getting them ready to participate in the sector, such that we can maximize value retention in our country. When your pockets are happy, politicians are happy. We know that you'll be able to handle certain challenges where you are coming from. So we also established a national supplier database. Whenever a company comes to me, Madam, I applied, the first thing I ask you, are you registered on the national supplier database? And say, I beg your pardon, what is that? Then you begin sensitizing them. It is important. And this is where all companies intending to participate in the oil and gas sector must be registered. It's not enough to be a Ugandan company. You must stretch out and register to the National Supplier Database. This database is managed by the Petroleum Authority of Uganda on behalf of government. And we are currently working together with Total Energies to establish and implement an industry enhancement center. There are many things we are establishing. But it's like a doctor having identified a sickness or a disease, and you have to go in there and do the surgery. Before you do the surgery, you have to administer certain things. So, by breaking down and creating all these centers, we want to reach the real problem faced by the companies. So, the Industry Enhancement Center is necessary because this will be upskilling the Ugandan companies, the local companies, and in areas that will make them more competitive when bidding for contracts in the sector. It's not enough to identify the need. You have to work around the need and make sure that you solve that problem. So this center, please follow it keenly, go there, be retooled, be skilled. And through the Petroleum Authority of Uganda, we are currently in the process of establishing a joint qualification system. You've been skilled, you are many. How are we going to choose now? Based on which qualification? Because you are many. We are not talking about 1, 2, 3, 4 local companies. So even amongst the local companies, there are competitions. And we want to make sure that we are doing everything transparently. Why can't we have a joint qualification system joined by the stakeholders so that we reduce on the petitions to be forwarded to the Petroleum Authority of Uganda. And then administrative reviews. And then we end those reviews. And then we are losing out on time. So it is important that we have this qualification system that will make the procurement and contracting process in the sector more transparent and efficient. So ladies and gentlemen, these policies and initiatives have enabled Ugandan companies to participate, resulting in approximately 28% of the 3.5 billion USD investment made between 2008 and 2017 being retained in the economy. It is expected that for the development phase, up to 40% of the between 15 to 20 billion USD to be invested will be retained in the country, 40% at least. And I'm informed that more than 170 contracts are valued at over 6.8 billion US dollars have so far been awarded after the announcement of the final investment decision. Uganda companies have been awarded 1.7 billion US dollars, and we expect more contracts to be awarded to Ugandans during this development phase. We are scrambling for opportunity, all of us. So the system has to be precise so that we reduce on petitions on me, the minister, whoever, going up, down, lobbying. The system has to be explicit. Of course, this has come, like I've explained, challenges notwithstanding. We have challenges, and I'd like to mention just a few, and to say that being a new industry, which is technically very sophisticated, there are bound to be several challenges that will be faced by local businesses. And one of the challenges that has come up is the lack of access to affordable financing by the local companies. Government is aware of this challenge, and we are working hard to ensure that we establish a local content development fund, which will offer affordable facilities to the Ugandan companies involved in the sector. I also want to suggest that in the meantime, because funds, very difficult to establish funds these days. You can succeed in establishing it. In policy, it is passed by cabinet, but to drop in money, we have funds which are empty. I struggled in the cabinet, and I reinstated the energy fund, which had been abolished. I went back to the president and I said, I just don't need it. I don't want a name. I actually want money. So the local content fund must have something in it, must have money. As we look for money, we can think about how we can involve our banks, to look at the options to help the local companies. They can consider synergizing, for example, create a pool of funds where they can make available some funds to be accessed by local companies at affordable rates. How the banks can structure such a facility can be discussed between government and themselves. I remember we worked with the bank on the agriculture creative facility or financing facility, something like that, to help those who are involved in agriculture, knowing that projects to deal with agriculture, the loans take long, the projects take long to mature. You need special tenure, special grace period, because you are waiting for the season. If you have invested in coffee and you want me to begin paying the loan back after 1 year, I have not harvested. So that kind of arrangement, we worked with the bank where government was putting a certain portion, I'm forgetting the ratio, either it was 3-1, where government puts in money and banks add on. We can borrow that arrangement with the banks because the objective is to help facilitate our local companies to stand up and begin competing and doing work. I'm just thinking about what we can do as we wait. So I encourage the Uganda Bankers Association. I've ever worked with you when I was a minister of microfinance. You can come in and do something as government looks for the money. There are also challenges around the tax regime that is being faced by Tier 2 and Tier 3 contractors. Tier 1 are those McDonald's, big, you know. They are the ones who negotiate, do the negotiation, and once they get those big contracts, Tier 1. Now Tier 2 and Tier 3 suffer. They are not part of the negotiating table. They are not, but they come to you. So I'm told that there are some challenges regarding payment of taxes, and I will sit with my Minister of Finance to make sure that this disadvantage is done away with in the process of providing goods and services. I believe that with engagement, most of the challenges we're faced with as contractors and subcontractors across all tiers can be solved. I beg to conclude, and pardon me, I have over-engaged you, but I was prepared to engage you. That's why I came back. And I'm concluding. I want to thank Stanbic Bank once again for the work you are doing in the sector. We have partnered with you severally on initiatives that are intended to drive the local content agenda in the Ugandan petroleum industry. For example, the Stanbic Incubator, that is doing a good job in training our local companies. Stanbic Properties Limited, which is undertaking a study, I'm meant to understand that you are undertaking a study to define and identify the opportunities for the real estate sector because of the oil and gas operations in the various host districts. We have also partnered with Stanbic Bank Uganda and the API Finance Holdings Limited to undertake a study to identify and define linkages between the agriculture and oil and gas sectors. We are lucky that we are developing our resources after when other people have done so. So we are able to learn from their challenges. We are able to learn from their mistakes. We are able to learn that Nigeria, for example, based herself on this crude oil and ignored the agriculture side. And then they ended up getting this money and importing food. We don't want to do that in Uganda. We want to balance agriculture and oil and gas. So we are learning, we are able to learn from the challenges of those who developed their resources before us. And as we exploit the available resources and continue to promote the country's petroleum potential, Uganda will host East African Premier Petroleum Conference, the East African Petroleum Conference and Exhibition from 9th to 11th May 2023. Participants will be able to meet and interact with leaders, policymakers, and potential business partners from East African Community member states and beyond in one place. And I therefore encourage you to sponsor the conference and also do participate. I want to once again thank Stanbic Business Incubator for organizing this session. Such arrangements are key for knowledge and information sharing, which is critical for local participation in the sector. I wish you all a fruitful and business engagement this evening. Thank you very much. I came just to wave to you the local content policy for oil and gas industry in Uganda. This is the policy, one of the policies. And I hope that you'll be able to access them. I know, Tony, you have them. If you don't, I can leave this copy. You can donate it to whoever you want. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Honorable. Thank you very, very much. Guys, you've heard. Now, I think, no. You've heard. So that is very interesting because, Honorable, you speak about the joint qualification system. And I remember during my time at Total, it was one of the things that we had devised as a way of supporting local businesses to be able to engage. So I'm happy that that's being activated. I'm also happy that the Industry Enhancement Center is a huge conversation on the table. I was also privileged to be part of that in 2015 with the design. So this is a great story in supporting local businesses. So Honorable, thank you very much. And we thank you so much for your time. I know you have to run to a dinner, which is, by the way, there is a dinner she's running to, which is actually her dinner. But she chose to come here or come back to us before that dinner. So I think that alone is evident of the fact that she is in support of our businesses. So thank you so much. We're now going to go to the next part. I apologize because there's also a question here. Honorable, would you mind one question?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Honorable. I'm Joseph Mukasa, a medical practitioner, and I'm privileged to be here, and I deal in health screening, so I'm to be part of this industry. So my concern is, Uganda Investment Authority is isolated, and it's not part of us, yet you've touched something very important, tax. And this institution, it's very important to come and talk something important, like something very useful to us, the SMEs. So is it, so I'm sorry, I don't know whether I'm talking to the right person, but it's a concern. Yeah, so that we touch that something which we don't know, we the SMEs, and they are the ones to handle it. Thank you so much.
We actually did, and they are part of a lot of the conversations we have. It's just that they're developing an oil and gas strategy as well, but they're part of us. They are actually part of us. In fact, in the conversations around the Industry Enhancement Center, they are the core, or one of the core areas of people who we shall be dealing with. Yeah. Finance. Yes. But also in future, I think PSFU is still here. They are very much work hand in hand with UIA. So they are willing to support on that. So thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Honorable. And Sheila Agaba, if you can come and support us and take us into the next bit, where she's going to support us with a very small, quick panel, where we're going to have the questions, the Q&A, with our panelists.
Okay. Thank you, Sheila. We need one more chair. It's time for experience sharing. And I would like to invite our panelists, Mr. Alex Simbonye from GCC. Alex. And Mr. Agre Ashaba as well. Please join me. So, as the panelists join in, The question is, do you sense the money? Do you sense the opportunity? Where do we begin from? Some of you have done market segmentation. So where do we begin? $15 billion final investment decision. Okay? You should be scratching your head. Okay, please take the seats. $6.8 billion in contracts already awarded. You should be asking, who has that money? And from that level, you're also thinking, okay, there are Ugandan companies, tier 2, tier 3, who have received that money. Are you part of it? Okay, so thank you, guys. This is one of the last sessions. So we want to see the experience here, what the experience of the current suppliers is in the oil and gas sector. So Sheila, please take the session forward.
Thank you, Nelson. Round of applause for Nelson. I sense some hunger in the room. Are we okay where we are? Do we have drinks? Supposed to be a networking session. Some people have stayed in the same seats that you have been in since we came. My name is Sheila Gaba. I am the business manager, Stanbic Business Incubator. I work directly with Tony Otoa on these oil and gas projects. So I'm happy to lead this discussion. Before us here, we have two wonderful gentlemen that are going to just share their experience. And this is where the story starts. Walking around the room, people are asking, is this real? How do we get it? How did you get it? So we hope you can tell us and share your story. So I'll start with Agri. Could you please share what your experience has been since signing of the FID?
Good evening, members and all those invited. Thank you, Sheila. Experiences since FID, I would say probably shorter nights, longer hours, extending into the night time, but also new experiences in terms of contract management. There's what we call mobilization. And mobilization is a time where you need to arrange certain items, usually not less than 300 or 400, including logistics, delivery periods within a short period of time, to be able to meet your timelines. Because remember, every single timeline that is given to you has an effect on the next contractor, on the next contractor, and the other contractor, and ultimately on the project. So for me, I think one of the biggest challenges has been how to manage the mobilizations, because they need cash, they need a lot of planning, they need a lot of logistics, they need a lot of quality control, they need a lot of cost control, they need a lot of cash flow management, but also being able to work late into the night. So for those who have been visiting our offices, they would casually walk in at 10 p.m. and everyone is still at their table, working, wow, pushing, and making sure that we are on time for the job and we are delivering a fantastic program for our clients.
Wow, thank you. Sounds quite interesting. So where have you found this money? As the minister told us, it's also one of the biggest challenges. So do you have some godfathers that you look up to? How have you been able to address that challenge of funding?
Well, funding is in different forms. What we did to be able to reduce on our exposure was to negotiate good contracts with our clients, McDermott and Total, to make sure that they front-loaded some of the money to us, which is called the advance payment. But obviously that needs you to have what they call an advance payment guarantee. So you need to prepare sounding advance payment guarantees from reputable banks that the clients are confident that if you fail to deliver on your obligations, they can cash them out. And the way they are structured is that it really leaves you exposed if you cannot be able to deliver on your obligations. Is that they do not even leave any room for you to make a complaint. As long as they present it to the bank, they get cashed out. So we received the advance payment, which has largely given us a bit of a cushion in terms of financial exposure to allow us to do the things that needed to be done first. But also internally, we've mobilized our own money, and it has also helped us to deliver on the obligations. But then again, there's the issue of cash flow. And this is fundamentally largely on the operating capital or operating cash that you require to execute your obligations. Because remember, the way the contracts are structured is that they're either paying you after 30 days, which practically is about 60 days, and others are paying you after 60 days, which is practically 90 days. So you need about a 90-day cash cover. But remember, you're dealing with suppliers that probably would want to have you to pay in cash for money you have not received. And also the issue that the minister has just highlighted, which is around the tax and the new IFRS requirement, is that you're invoicing and you obviously have to issue an IFRS receipt. Every 15th, URA expects you to make a payment for money you have not received, but you'll be receiving in 90 days. So you have a cycle of 2 tax payments for money you do not have and you're yet to receive. And I think that's something that we need to address. But largely, we've been funded from the contracts, and also
like a lot of mathematics there. I'll move over to you, Mr. Mbonye. If you could just share with us what Camod Better does. We have lots of SMEs in the room. You could be the guy with the money. So are you the guy with the money? And if you are, how have you handled the experience after FID? What has it been like?
Thank you, Sheila. Well, Camod Better is a JV between Camod Kenya and Better Projects Uganda, which is a local 100% company which started in 2006, supporting projects, supplying materials, procurement. We had projects in the past like the Ginger Bridge. We supplied some materials there. We did some work at the airport. But the biggest project we did before that in the 2013-15 was in the DRC for the gold mine, Kibali. That was it was a game changer for us. So we built capacity from there as beta projects. Now we fast forward to 2017 when CBNI was coming here. That's when we took an interest in the camp. So we did research. We said, how can we build this camp? We talked to potential partners in Middle East, Europe, and we zeroed down on Turkey, a company called Camod Fabrication. They have very good technology. So in a short story, we made a JV between the Kenyan entity of Camod and Uganda, which is Beta Project. So it's an East African sort of arrangements. And through the JV, we are able to, it cushions us on the financing side. Of course, the advance payment is good, what he talked about. It helps you with your mobilization and all that. But we also have a private capital, which we inject. And we have support from the banks. So it's a mixture of these things, and it needs to be managed extremely well, because every month you have enormous payments. You know, in a year we could have spent over 10 billion. So you can imagine every month you need to have that money. So we've managed it. The JV route has helped us tremendously, and I would encourage people to look out for JV partners. If you look at a potential, contract which needs high technology and more capital, please look for JV partners anywhere in the world. If you have a good lawyer, you can put a good JV agreement together. And we're willing to, advise from our experience. So far, it's working well.
All right. Thank you for sharing. have you been able to support any local businesses as this JV? And if so, how have you supported local content? Because we're all here to support the local content story, but has come out better. How many businesses are you supporting? Are you in any specific sectors? Just share how you do it.
Yeah, thank you. Cumulatively, 63. We've done business with 63 companies, and these range from suppliers of sand to furniture suppliers to transport companies. Clearly, we have had an impact even on our community in Bulisa. In terms of employment, we have about over 700 people working on the project, not only in Bulisa but in Kampala combined. So that has an impact on the local economy there. But for sure, we have worked with over 63 companies, but now we are scaling back because we are left with about 3-4 months to demobilize and finish the project. So we are scaling back, but we are also bidding for other works. So hopefully we'll work with these people again.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for sharing, Alex. So there's a story about GCC as we talk about local content. Are you local? Are you international? Are you a JV? What is JV? Could you please share your experience on that and also quiet the rumors?
Well, GCC is a local company, is a Ugandan company with different shareholding. 48% owned by Ugandans, 52% owned by our partners who are based out of Kuwait, but it's 100% a Ugandan company. By definition, by the way it's operating and everything that it's doing. We've been in the market for the last 12 years, since 2011, servicing oil and gas from Talo to Total to Sinok and different other players outside the oil and gas business. In terms of support to the Ugandans, we probably do about 99% of all our business with Ugandan companies, both in the communities but also in Uganda. And for these particular contracts, I think the only things we have imported is kitchen equipment because of the quality that was required and the quantity and the timelines that it was needed in, because no one carries this type of equipment around. But we did buy a bit of equipment from a few Ugandan companies like BM Tamale, who had what was available at that time, and the rest we had to get it in to be able to beat the timelines. Because the structure of the contracts that we have is that for every date that shifts without you delivering an obligation is what we call liquidated damages. So then you have to pay your client a certain amount of money because they will incur a cost if they do not get whatever service or obligation you have to deliver at a certain period of time. So we deal with the communities.
What's your business, maybe?
Well, so GCC, we do life support services. Briefly, it's basically what you see here, hotel services in remote locations. So we provide food, we provide facilities maintenance, we do housekeeping and laundry, we do pest control, we do emergency services, everything else that people who are going to be working in the oil and gas sector require for them to do their core business, which is maybe drilling, which is maybe completion works, everything else. So all they do is come in the camp that they are building, sleep, they will have breakfast, lunch, dinner, find everything of theirs done, ironed, clean, everything cleaned, and then they can go to work. In and out for the duration of the project.
All right, thank you. There's a subcontractor that I know who keeps saying GCC has the biggest catering contracts in the oil camps. So that's where the storyline was coming from. So thank you for sharing on the products that you do serve. Maybe if both of you could share with us what, okay, maybe also just for clarity, the tier 1, tier 2, Mr. Mshure tried to touch a bit on them. I know we teach this stuff in our supplier development program, but who are they? the tier one companies, and how has it been working with them?
So I don't know whether the right definition is the oil companies being tier one, but I think we are tier one contractors with Total. We are tier two contractors with McDermott, and we will be tier three contractors with some contracts that we are trying to also bid for, where you have the IOC, then McDermott, then maybe Camod Beta, and if Camod Beta gives us business, we become tier three. So we have worked across the whole value chain, but if you speak within our value chain as GCC, so as tier one contractor for Total, when we use BM Tamale to supply kitchen equipment, they become tier two. When we use multi-lines to do the transportation and logistics, they become a tier two contractor. But if we use an aggregator like Pure Grow, who becomes our tier two contractor, and he has to go and deal with farmer groups, the farmer groups become tier three contractors. So that is how the value chain works. And the farmer groups deal with smallholder farmers to produce the tomatoes that we need, the eggs, the vegetables, and the watermelons that eventually come into the camp that feed the people that work there. So that whole value chain, everyone actually has a benefit. But it's not that everyone is going to be a tier one contractor or a tier two contractor or a tier three contractor. There's a huge value chain that different people can be able to plug in and still get a benefit.
Okay. For us, going by that definition, we are strictly tier two because we are working as a contractor for McDermott. So we are tier two, and working with them has been an incredible experience in terms of learning these standards, the oil and gas standards, the global standards, at a very high speed. I mean, we have been on fast forward from day one, and there's no moment to rest. But we appreciate, and we've learned a lot, and we've passed on the skills to our people, which will help us to work and do well in any other contract because of the high standards that we are working under. So it's an excellent opportunity, and we by end of this month we should have 1,000 bed capacity, 1,060. And then by end of January, 2,000 bed capacity. So speaking in terms of beds, he mentioned about a hotel. It's like a big hotel, but out in the remote sites. Then by March, we should have the 4,000 capacity. So it's been an excellent working relation.
All right, thank you. So this was just a teaser of the type of conversations that you should be having. These are the types of people that are in the room. Please make it a point to move off the table you have been since you walked in here. Move around, look for contractors that have these contracts. They do have business. The ones here have not told us the business they have, specifically for local SMEs, but if you had, you will become a subcontractor of the subcontractor who is already working with them. Just like to ask for parting shots as we close this, and maybe if the audience also wants to get to you, but just give us your parting shots.
Okay, thank you. As we move to the closing phase of our project, I think the few opportunities left are around electromechanical services. So that's plumbing, water supply. That's where there are few opportunities. Otherwise, we have been working with, like I said, over 60 companies. So if there are people in the room around that sector, we can talk. And I'm available. I have my business cards. We can keep in touch.
Right, thank you. And Agri?
Thank you, Sheila. Well, for me, I'll just say that everyone has spoken about the opportunity, but no one is speaking about the load you need to take on the opportunity. It's quite a challenge, and anyone who is going to play in the oil and gas at whatever level has to be able to lift this load. The long nights, the sleepless nights, the ability to do contract management, because these documents are almost 5,000 pages. And every single bit of it has to be read by someone, understood, because otherwise you're going to end up doing scope that is outside of your scope and you're going to lose money. Two, the ability to do cost control, because that is very critical and very important, because without that, you're basically going to lose a lot of money and will not be a good story. 3 is the cash conversion cycle. And like I've spoken, the contracts are usually fixed for 4 years. They are paying you after 30 days or 60 days. So you need to understand how you convert from the sales point to when you receive your next money, because cash flow is king. Without you being able to manage your cash flows, we've faced it. We have a couple of challenges on that. But if you cannot be able to diagnose it, then you can't be able to treat it. And this we have faced also with our subcontractors. The opportunities we've given to different SMEs, and you find that they're having challenges with supply stability and price stability. And also changing terms that you've agreed in January, and by May, they're telling you a different story, and you still have to discuss with another supplier, but you have an obligation to deliver. So it's not just the Tier 1 contractors or Tier 2 contractors. All of us across the value chain need to be able to speak the same language, because the contracts we receive, we are going to give them back to back to everyone else that comes alongside us. And obviously, the other bit on our side that I think is very critical is the financial management and the governance of the company. Because the failure of every one of us in terms of running the operation, in terms of running the successful organization, is how the business is actually structured. Who is in that position? What are they doing? What are the protocols? What can they do? Where do they start? Where do they stop? And having that ability to trust the people, to be able to execute the obligations, is the only way that you can deliver success.
All right. Thank you. You've had it from the horse's mouth. So cash is king is what I picked out. All right. Thank you, Mr. Mbonye and Mr. Shava. I'll hand back to Nelson. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Sheila. And thank you, our panelists. One more round of applause. I know that we are eating. Let's do. Okay, so this is it for today. You've heard about the opportunity, but also you've heard about what it takes to grab the opportunity. The rest is up to you. But only for you, you must believe that the opportunity is here, activities are ongoing. The first drop of oil from the ground is about to be seen, the minister told us. So it's all about you. Just to mention to you that at the Stanbic Business Incubator, every year we run a supply development program. The supply development program is for you to understand the terminologies, that so many terminologies have been put out today, for you to understand the sector, and for you to get prepared for bidding for these opportunities. So please look out for these opportunities next year. We'll be running it again in partnership with the Petroleum Authority and the other partners, and of course the financing available from Stanbic Bank. So, for the rest of the time, please continue the networking, and you can depart at leisure after you've grabbed an opportunity. Thank you, and good evening, everyone.